In case you're needing help with worksheet number 5, we're going to go through number 12 in this video. So a ball is thrown vertically into the air with an initial velocity of 64 feet per second. We can see that as our b value. The function y equals negative 16 t squared plus 64t gives its height above the ground after t seconds. So if the t is in place of our x, then on a graph, I would say my x-axis would be labeled t for time in seconds, and my y is the height. So normally there would be an h right there. So on the problems above, you probably saw an h. This one showed a y. What is its height after 1.5 seconds? We can determine the height, because that's our y value, by plugging in our time of 1.5 seconds. So I'm going to do negative 16, and every time I plug in a number, I want to put it inside parentheses. That 1.5 is going to be squared first, which gives me negative 16, and then 1.5 times 1.5 is 2.25. And then the rest of the equation is going to continue the same. And now I can multiply these together. So negative 16 times 2.25 is negative 36. 64 times 1.5 is going to give me 96. So negative 36 plus 96 will give me my height after 1.5 seconds, which is 60 feet. When it says what is the maximum height, my maximum height will occur at my vertex, so I need to determine the vertex. I know that the first value is going to be my time. The second value is going to be the maximum height. So in order to find that h value, in order to find this h value here, I need to determine what the t value is first. So in order to find that, and I find my axis of symmetry, which is going to be negative b over 2a. My b value is 64, so I'm doing negative 64 over 2 times a, which is negative 16. And this is negative 64 divided by negative 32, which gives me a positive 2. That means my axis of symmetry is 2, which means that's the x value of my vertex, or the t value, the time it took to get to the maximum height. In order to get the maximum height part, you're going to take that 2 and plug it into your equation. So my height would be negative 16 times 2 squared plus 64 times 2. And you're going to simplify that. Negative 16 times 4 plus 64 times 2. Well, we know that negative 16 times 4 is negative 64. And 64 times 2 is 128. So you're doing negative 64 plus 128, which would give you 64 for that value. So my maximum height here is 64 feet. When will the ball hit the ground? If you hit the ground, that means your height is equal to 0. So I can plug in 0 for my height and solve for the rest. So negative 16t squared plus 64t equals 0. If I have no c value, then I can factor using greatest common factors. These are both divisible by negative 16, and they're also both divisible by t. So I'm going to take that to the outside and tell me what's left in the inside. Well, I know I still have a t left over. And 64t divided by negative 16 is a negative 4. If you multiply these things together to equal 0, then that means either this side has to equal 0 or the part in parentheses has to equal 0. So if I were to make this equal to 0, I know that 0 times negative 16 times anything else would give me 0. So when we do negative 16t equals 0, divide by 16 on each side, that gives me t equals 0. That's not when it hits the ground, that's when it starts. It starts on the ground and then goes up and hits the ground again. So my other value, when this t minus 4 equals 0, will be my answer, and then I add 4 to the other side. T equals 4, which means the answer to this problem, when does it hit the ground, is 4 seconds.